Welcome to the Living Healthy Podcast, where you can improve your quality of life by making solid and informed decisions. I'm your host, Eddie Randall. I got a great show lined up tonight. A lot of interesting things to talk about, a lot of insightful information to share. I'm going to be particularly talking about carcinogens and a lot of harmful chemicals that we're exposed to every single day that can hamper and hinder our lives and actually take years off of our lives and to decrease our quality of life. I want to make people aware that there are alternatives to these chemicals and lifestyle changes and things that we can do in order to avoid these things and have a better life. Every day, we're bombarded by electromagnetic radiation, radio waves, microwaves, carcinogens through personal care products, carcinogens in the food that we eat. So I'm just going to share some information to hopefully shed some light on things and open a few eyes out there so we can, make some better decisions and have a better life. This show is entitled Ways to Reduce Your Likelihood of Developing Cancer and Life-Altering Diseases. The first thing that I would like to discuss tonight are parabens. Now, parabens, they're a class of chemicals which are used as preservatives. They're commonly found in makeup, shaving gel, toothpaste, shampoo, medications, lotions, moisturizers, antiperspirants, and even food. They're used as a preservative because they possess qualities that prohibit bacterial growth as well as fungal growth. Now, as an example of a paraben, just to give you an example, when you go shopping and you get a receipt from the cashier, you feel the receipt and how it has that plastic, almost like slippery, rubbery type feel on it. Well, that's essentially what a paraben is, and they put these things in the foods that we eat. So the health concern around these parabens are that they've been linked to breast cancer as well as fertility problems. Parabens have been around since the 1950s, and the chemical at first gained insight through their use in makeup, through cancer awareness. So that's what brought these dangerous chemicals to light. Their use in makeup associated with cancer. Even though the parabens are still used today in the makeup industry, they're not used as much as they were, say, 10 or 15 years ago, because there are a lot of alternatives now that the makeup manufacturers have decided to make a lot of paraben-free products, and there are also a lot of paraben-free makeup companies that are out there selling products. So there are lots of choices out there for ladies to make regarding makeup. Now, what makes parabens so dangerous is not only are they carcinogens, but they mimic the chemical structure of estrogen. And so when it gets into the body, because estrogen or oestrogen is the class of female sex hormones, and too much estrogen can trigger cell division. Now, what it does when it gets in the body, it creates an unfavorable condition which alter breast cell growth, and it causes tumors. It can alter puberty, the reproductive cycle, and it can even cause infertility. I was doing some research on it, and I was looking at an article on the National Library of Medicine by Darby, Aljara, Miller, Coldham, Sauer, and Pope. And the article was called Concentrations of Parabens in Human Breast Tumors. Now, they took just normal everyday women that that wore makeup and that where these women actually had developed breast cancer. So they were analyzing the breast tumors, and that they found in these tumors they had very high concentrations of parabens. And it's very sad that companies had to use these things, and these women had to develop the the breast cancer because of it. It's very unfortunate, but they were looking at that study, and they had linked the parabens to their cancer. What happens is when it's absorbed in small amounts through the skin, it can also cause other health problems. What they're doing in Europe and Southeast Asia, they allow parabens to be used, but they've been banned in select parabens rather have been banned. Some, like, they use them in some products, but not a lot, and they're tightly regulated. I was looking at a website called Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, and on that website it lists some parabens that people should look out for. So the next time you're shopping, you're trying to pick out some makeup, or you're doing something, looking at products, you may want to flip that over and just go through the ingredients. Bring your reading glasses with you if you need to, or you can do what I do when if I'm out shopping and I want to look at the ingredients on a product, I just take a picture of it with my phone, blow it up, and then I can look at it and read what's in there. But on that website, Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, they list some parabens you should be mindful of. The first one is going to be butyl paraben, ethyl paraben, heptyl paraben, methyl paraben, and propyl paraben, and all of them are carcinogens. Now the call to action is this. They are actually conflicting evidence on both sides, because parabens have been found in other tissues where there have been no trace of cancer. But that could just be because the cancer cells were not triggered yet. So, the only way to tell is to allow time to, gradually continue, and that's how you can tell what'll happen. The future will actually show the outcome. When prompted, cosmetic makers, went to go ahead and eliminate or offer paraben-free cosmetics, and this was due to the public outcry of a lot of women developing breast cancer, and so that's why I'm a big advocate for people always saying what's on your mind or making your voice heard, because that's the only time that people will change things. So because of it's unfortunate what happened with the breast cancer, but the fact that a lot of women stood up and demanded change, it changed the industry. And that's a fantastic thing. Every voice is important. Every voice should be heard. And that's gonna do it for the parabens as far as makeup. The parabens are also available, unfortunately, in shaving gel, shampoo, toothpaste, medications, lotions, moisturizers, antiperspirants, and as I had mentioned earlier, food. In regard to men using products with parabens, particularly I would say like with shaving cream, it can affect men by decreasing the quality of sperm as well as lowering the sperm count. Men can also develop chest cancer due to the parabens from using antiperspirants. And I'm always against using antiperspirants because of the aluminum that's in there. I'm a big advocate for just using regular deodorant, but I'll talk about that later. The parabens, they're also found in shampoo. They can damage your hair color. They can even damage the hair follicle. They're in the toothpaste. Use over time can contribute to excessive estrogen buildup, and as I had mentioned earlier, that excessive estrogen production or introduction to estrogen, it triggers excessive cell growth, which leads to cancer. As far as the parabens being used in medications, they put them in medication to increase the shelf life. Unfortunately, if you have cancer and you're getting chemo, parabens can interfere with the body's natural ability to metabolize the chemo drug. And blood pressure medications can contain the parabens, statins, diabetic medications, etc. They're all in there. For the medications, I feel, I wish the parabens weren't in there, but I feel that's kind of necessary if you need the medication. We're kind of limited on, the medications that we can have, and, as far as, places that we can go, there's only, the big pharma, they got everything pretty much locked down. So as far as it being in medications, if you have to take a medication, you have to. But as far as other daily products, other things that's out there, we have choices, and you don't have to settle. It's other products like lotion, moisturizers, antiperspirants. They all have them, the parabens, and once absorbed into the skin through repeated use, they accumulate, and that gives us our risk for cancer. And speaking of parabens, there are natural parabens that are in some vegetables and some fruits in trace amounts. Now, it's the man-made ones that are the problem, the ones that they put into the snack foods and sodas and things like that to increase the shelf life. And the call to action regarding that of having them in foods. There are a lot of paraben-free alternatives at organic food stores or at the organic food section at your local supermarket. With the shaving gel, shampoo, toothpaste, they also offer paraben-free. Now, I would try to go for toothpaste that are paraben-free, SLS-free, and fluoride-free. The SLS is the sodium lauryl sulfate. It's not a carcinogen, but it triggers allergic reactions. And the fluoride, I'm against that because that's a carcinogen. And with fluoride, there actually been studies that link fluoride to osteosarcoma, which is a bone cancer. The reason I mentioned the fluoride and SLS along with the parabens is that when you go for those like high quality or those toothpaste manufacturers that try to give you a pure toothpaste, they tend to leave out the fluoride, SLS, and paraben altogether. So it makes it easier to find a good healthy toothpaste, but they tend to offer them together, leaving all those items out, I should say, together. You can use lotions, moisturizers, deodorants that are paraben free. Again, there are alternatives out there. You can also just use coconut oil, cold pressed, non-refined. You can use that as a lotion or a moisturizer. It may be a bit oily for some, but you can use it sparingly. Test what amount works for you, and you can go for that. And again, with antiperspirants against that, with the parabens, use deodorants. Try to get the paraben-free ones. And again, with the medications, we're pretty much limited on that until things eventually change and they can make medications without using the parabens. The next thing I would like to discuss is petroleum. Now, petroleum jelly, aka petrolatum, it's commonly associated with babies for diaper rash, for burns. It's used as a moisturizer on lips. Petroleum jelly is actually a byproduct from the petroleum refining process, which means making gasoline, diesel fuel, and oil. And it was discovered hundreds of years ago, literally by accident. They just had the buildup of all this petroleum and they didn't know what to do with it. So they decided to try out some things and try to sell it, to make some extra money. And so they ended up refining it, trying to take out a lot of the impurities. But, as with anything, it wasn't always pure at first, and it caused a lot of problems, a lot of defects, a lot of cancer, and just impacted people's health negatively. So since this is a byproduct, even today, it's not initially pure, and it needs to be refined to remove some toxins and carcinogens. Typically, petroleum jelly, it's triple refined. It's necessary to refine it that much to get out all the impurities. But then again, we don't always know that it's done, and on the jar of petroleum, the petroleum jelly, it doesn't always say what purity level was achieved. It's not, the law doesn't say that they have to list it. So a lot of these manufacturers work within the confines of the law, and there could be a little loophole there that allows them to get away with some things. That being said, cheaper brands, they may skimp and not completely purify it the way that they should, just to save money. That can also happen with a lot of these huge companies, but it's a little more unlikely because they have a lot more to lose, a lot more eyes are watching them. And there's a chemical called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. They're a class of carcinogens, and they are inside of petroleum, and they're not always completely removed during the refinement process. I was looking at a study on involving DNA adducts. Now, a DNA adduct is a piece of DNA that has suffered damage from a chemical. And while I was researching this, I found that there was a study in New York that had determined that women with DNA adducts suffering damage from the petroleum carcinogen, these women were 50% more likely to develop cancer. Now, in the European Union, they allow petroleum to be used in cosmetics, but the refinement process must be known from start to finish, and accountability has to be shown. This is not true for any U.S. manufacturer of petroleum. So it's very sad, very unfortunate, but that is the honest truth regarding that. In the call to action, there are alternatives. You can use aloe, coconut oil, or beeswax. If a baby has a diaper rash, you can use the aloe or the coconut oil. These two things can also be used to treat burns and skin irritations. And the added benefit is that aloe and coconut oil also have healing properties that the petroleum jelly does not. And as far as using as a moisturizer for your lips, you can use beeswax, which is a very safe alternative juxtaposed to petroleum. The next thing that I wanted to talk to is one of the more popular, or one of the more infamous ones, I should say. It's called fragrance. Now, fragrance, everybody loves a good fragrance. Everybody loves a good perfume, a good cologne. Smells are great. Everyone loves to smell good. Everyone loves to smell something good. Good scents. They're associated with great memories, and they trigger a lot of great and happy, joyous emotion in the brain. Makers of perfumes, body washes, and soaps, these manufacturers list fragrance as an ingredient. However, fragrance can have literally thousands of ingredients within them, and they're all under that umbrella word of fragrance. The fragrance industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and companies take advantage of a legal loophole involving this. These companies can put unregulated chemicals into products under the term under the ingredient fragrance. The fragrance industry regulates itself, and there is little to no transparency. Now this is how it works. Companies who specialize in fragrances are sought by companies who make products like perfumes, air fresheners, soaps, body washes. They pay the fragrance companies to make their scent unique. And a lot can go into that, unfortunately, meaning a lot of these harmful chemicals because they're unregulated. Some of these scents are derived from petroleum. Some of them contain phthalates, methylene chloride, styrene, benzophenone, propylparaben, and butoxyethanol, as well as musk ketone. And also, formaldehyde is tossed in there as well. It's sometimes used as we call it a preservative to the fragrance. Now, the health concern is this. Many, if not all, of these chemicals are known carcinogens. They're also neurotoxins and DNA disruptors. The phthalates that they use, they can cause breast cancer, kidney damage. They can also lower sperm count, and they can cause asthma. The methylene chloride, it's actually used as a paint stripper. It can cause hematuria, which is blood in the urine, and also liver damage. The styrene, it can cause damage to the brain and the nervous system. The benzophenone, it's an endocrine disruptor. It can also cause liver cancer. And the propylparaben, it can cause breast cancer. The butoxyethanol, It can cause kidney damage, and it can affect the hemoglobin, meaning the way that your body is able to deliver oxygen throughout the rest of the rest of your body. It can affect the way that it does that. The musk ketone, it's a hormone disruptor. It causes liver damage, and a lot of research studies have found that this particular musk ketone has been built up in breast milk. Now, the call to action against fragrance, many companies offer a form of organic or natural perfumes. You can even purchase organic products to make your own perfumes or colognes if you so desire. There are deodorants that are fragrance-free, organic, free of fragrance. The same goes for soaps, and many of these can be found in organic food stores. You can even, on top of that, you can even make your own soap. I remember, I'm not sure which chemistry class I was in, but I remember in the lab, one of my lab partners, this young lady, and was telling me how she makes her own soap. And I just really thought that was so interesting. I never thought about making my own soap, but she was telling me about it and telling me how easy it was. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never tried it, but, I just thought it was very interesting. And as far as the fragrance with the air fresheners, you can make your own air freshener. You can try, sprinkling some lemon zest into like a little cup or a little saucer or something, leaving that around the house. You can use that as a natural air freshener. And we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. The next thing that I'd like to discuss is red meat and overcooked meat, particularly barbecue and different meats like hamburgers, hot dogs, things of that nature. The health concern is that with barbecue, charred meat, hot dogs, ham, things like that, they taste good. So unless you're vegetarian, most people like to eat those things. The unfortunate thing is that when these foods are charred or smoked or barbecued, they emit heterocyclic amines and polycyclic amines. They can damage the stomach, and they actually cause cancer. Research shows that this happens when the meat is overcooked. I was looking at the cancer.gov website, and they state the same thing, that when you cook any meat or char it, it does release those heterocyclic amines and the polycyclic amines. They end up changing the DNA, which results in cancer in the consuming individual. The chemicals in the meat can affect our cells in many ways. I remember years ago, an employer that I had worked for, there was a client, a nice lady that used to do a lot of business there, and we didn't see her for a very long time. And then when she came back to to start bringing us business again, she explained that she was out sick because she had colon cancer. And the thing with her, she said she loved to eat a lot of steak, and she said her doctor told her that the meat tenderizer that they used a lot in the steaks, that actually pretty much kind of did the same thing to her insides. It did it to her colon. It tenderized it, and she ended up having abnormal cell growth and having colon cancer. And it was a big ordeal that she went through, and thankfully she survived and everything. But it's just amazing to show how what we put into our body affects our lifestyle. And our way of life and overall health. I was also looking at the U.S. National Library of Medicine, their website. There was an article by Dr. Zhang and Dr. Lee. The article was entitled "Well Done Meat Intake, Heterocyclic Amine Exposure, and Cancer Risk." What they did, they analyzed epidemiological studies involving animals over a 10-year period. They also determined that charred barbecued meat and that was overcooked posed a threat to humans because it acted as a carcinogen in these animals over a 10-year period. Also on pubmd.gov, they have an article entitled "Red Meat Derived Heterocyclic Amines increased risk of colon cancer, a population-based case control study. It's by Helmus, Thompson, Zielinski, Tucker, and Lee. In their study, they determined that the heterocyclic amines and polycyclic amines led to colon cancer in red meat, but not in white meat. On top of that, these red meats, a lot of the processed red meats, they're packed full of nitrates and nitrites, which are very bad and well-known carcinogens. The call to action: don't overcook your meat, limit your barbecues, and try not to eat red meat that have nitrites in them. Some people say to put your food in microwaves at first to limit the cooking time. Once it's thawed out and you probably cook it in the microwave for a little bit, then you can take it out and continue the cooking process. You can also trim the fat on the food prior to cooking it, on the meat. You can avoid red meat altogether. You can use ground turkey, ground chicken in place of ground beef if you want to avoid the red meat with the nitrates and nitrites. You can also have turkey dogs instead of traditional hot dogs. If you can't find them and you really want them, you can use hot dogs without nitrates and nitrites. And there are a lot of offerings that are available now regarding this at the grocery store. A lot more options than they had, I'd say, 10 years ago. This is due to people becoming more health conscious, and I think which is a fantastic thing, because I'm all for that. The next thing that I would like to talk about is processed food. Now, thousands of chemicals are purposely put into processed foods to alter the taste, to make the processed food taste like a desired idea or connotation of a particular food. For an example, just think of your favorite fruit and how great that fruit smells and how juicy it is and how great it tastes. Now, manufacturers and companies are sitting around thinking, hey, I want to sell this, I want to market this. How can I get this into a soda? Let's get with the, some chemists and find out how I can make a chemical to make this taste like this fruit. What would it taste like? Let's come up with a way for it to taste. Then we have to come up with a color for it, a chemical to give it that color. Then we have to give it a preservative to give it a good shelf life until it's sold. Now, all these things, these chemicals are in there, and then, when you consume them, they get into your body and, things can happen. These are things to be mindful of when we're putting food into our bodies, As far as the health concern, I'll just use an example of red dye number 40. It's a dye used in foods here in the United States, even in 2021. It is banned in Europe. And oddly enough, it's made from petroleum, which is a known carcinogen. As far as the sweeteners, it's becoming common knowledge that the high fructose corn syrup is extremely bad for you. So a lot of manufacturers are going toward alternative sweeteners. Unfortunately, many of them have been linked to cancer as well. Known carcinogens. Aspartame, it's used as a sweetener. It's a known carcinogen. As far as preservatives, sodium benzoate, they put that in soda to preserve it. It's a known carcinogen. So there's a lot of things out there that it's pretty nasty stuff. As far as potato chips, and I love potato chips, but I'm leaning more toward the healthy stuff. I'm consuming, when I do eat them, I'm consuming more of the healthy stuff. I'm leaning away from all the the bad stuff that I that I used to desire. One of the things that they put in there is BHA, which is butylated hydroxyanazole and butylated hydroxytoluene. These are both preservatives used in processed foods, mainly potato chips. They preserve, they work rather to prevent oils from releasing in the potato chip bags and causing them to go rancid. Both of them known carcinogens. There's even a very popular and famous potato chip brand or potato chip that is here in the United States. I don't name names. You can do your own research to find out online. It's a very popular, famous potato chip brand. They are completely banned in China. They will not allow them to be sold because of the amount of carcinogens that are in them. Unfortunately, these carcinogens carry over into the milk and butter in the U.S. Not all of them, but some of them contain a growth hormone that's given to cows to promote milk production. The hormones I'm talking about is RBST or RBSH. It's banned in Canada, banned in Europe, and for good reason. Personally, for the over the last 10 years, I've been eating or having butter that does not have RBST in it, and a lot of the milk that does not. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it just to know you're not putting that unnecessary hormone into your body. And other processed foods contain what's called MSG, or monosodium glutamate. It's actually a flavor enhancer. It causes nerve damage and cardiac damage. It also increases insulin resistance, creating or contributing rather to somebody becoming diabetic. I remember late 80s, early 90s, there was a big push for manufacturers to get away from using MSG. They don't use it as much as they used to. It's still being used in food that's processed in the United States, particularly in like fast foods. It's unfortunate, but yeah, they're still using it. Moving on to a very interesting thing that I found out. TBHQ, or tert butyl hydroquinone. It's better known as butane, as in the butane lighter fluid. Now get this, they put this stuff in chicken nuggets as a preservative, and it's also used in some cosmetics, and it's a carcinogen. The next thing is propyl gallate. It's a preservative that's put into microwave popcorn. It's been found to cause cancer in lab animals. It's banned in parts of Europe, the United Kingdom, and it's also banned in Japan. The next thing is the potassium bromate. It's they put it in muffins, cakes, bread, cookies, etc. to give it a white fluffy glow. Any type of baked good, pretty much they put it in there. It's a carcinogen, and it's banned in the UK, banned in Brazil, Canada, and is banned in all of Europe. The next thing is the carrageenan. Carrageenan is pretty much like gluten. It has no nutritional value. It's used as a thickener in many things like toothpaste, eggnog. Some milk brands use it. It's also found in non-dairy products. It promotes inflammation, it promotes irritable bowel disease, and it causes colon cancer. The call to action regarding these products: if you can, just avoid soda, or avoid soda with the preservatives and dyes and things in it. In regard to this, I remember when I was in elementary school, and one of the teachers was telling us that cola is actually clear, and they put a dye in it, they put a paint in it, like to give it that color, and that kind of like blew my mind, and I wasn't in health conscious as I am today, but just remembering that fact all those years ago, and I was like, that's quite interesting. Let's see, and there's today you can get a lot of natural sodas from organic health food stores. A lot of them use cane sugar as a sweetener, so you can avoid these carcinogens, and some of them use natural chemicals as a color to the soda. Just as like if you think about the yogurt, I can't remember exactly what it's called, if it's a chondritin or the skin or whatever it is of those little beetles, but they put a lot of, I think that's what it's called, they put it in the strawberry flavored yogurts, things like that, to give it that color. Some people don't like that. There's an alternative to that. But yogurt manufacturers, they kind of make it both ways. You just need to look on the label to see which one you're purchasing. And in regard to chips, which are some of my favorite snacks, health food stores, they offer entire aisles of natural non-GMO potato chips, popcorn, kale chips, spinach, etc. So you don't have to literally like go to your grocery store and settle for a bag full of carcinogen. You can actually get some healthy alternatives that are out there, and I'm very appreciative to health food stores allowing people to make better choices regarding what they put in their body. And as far as the RBST, you can buy organic milk and butter that do not contain it. And as far as the MSG, you can avoid fast foods. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, like some fast food every now and again. Just don't make a habit of doing it. Don't, try not to go every week or a few times a week. You don't want to put all those chemicals in, every once in a blue moon or something like that. You should be fine. Just don't make a habit of, just consuming stuff like that, over time. The reason why I say that is because I don't want to make it seem like, oh, you got to live in a bubble, you got to avoid everything. Some people can go their entire life without smoking or drinking or anything like that. They can end up with cirrhosis of the liver, stage 4 liver cancer, stage 4 lung cancer. Some people can smoke for 20 years, 25, 30 years, and have nothing ever happen to them. So that's why I say, if you want to have like in moderation, have something that may be not completely good for you, just at discretion, that's why I say that. As far as the chicken nuggets with the butane, I would, you can make your own chicken nuggets. You can buy organic chicken. You can have a fun project with the family on a Friday night for dinner, making organic chicken nuggets. Or you can do the same thing on a Saturday afternoon lunch for the entire family. A great project for the family to get together, do something like that. The same can be done for making chicken sandwiches, if you want to do something in that regard. As far as the microwave popcorn, I would just avoid that altogether. That's the only way I would just be able to get away from the propylgalate. I wouldn't even do that. You can buy organic and non-GMO limited ingredient popcorn at your local organic food store. You can look for baked goods that do not have potassium bromate, or you can make your own baked goods with wheat flour and non-enriched flour. So you do have your options out there. For toothpaste, there are a number of toothpastes out there. Some are fluoride free, SLS free, Carrageen free. You can go out there and purchase these things. You can also find dairy products without it, and you can also find non-dairy Carrageenan products, non-dairy Carrageenan free products for people who are lactose intolerant. So alternatives are out there. The next thing that I would like to discuss are the organohalogens and the polybrominated diphenyl ethers. Now, the organohalogens and polybrominated diphenyl ethers, they are two classes of chemicals used in flame retardants that should be avoided at all costs. They're used in furniture, clothing, beds, and television. Now, the health concern surrounding this, they were put in place originally to keep people safe, but over time they found out that these things are neurological disruptors. They're a source of birth defects as well as being carcinogenic. On the Environmental Protection Agency's website, they list these class of chemicals as carcinogens to both animals and humans. As far as the clothing, a law in the mid-1970s in the United States called for children to have their sleepwear treated as to increase their survival rate in the event of a fire. This carried over into flame retardants being used in beds and furniture. In clothing, the chemical can get absorbed into the skin by direct contact. With televisions, furniture, beds, the chemical leaches and it combines with household dust, and it gets breathed in or absorbed through the skin when contact is made. If you're you're sitting on the couch with your family or whatever, watching a sporting event or something, and you got everyone sitting around eating, eating and having fun, relaxing, and you happen to touch the furniture and then you touch your mouth or something. That's how these things get absorbed and introduced into the body, and it's very unfortunate. In Europe, they've banned many of the fire retardants that the United States still uses. And until 2007, there was no regulation on fire retardants used in beds, which I found very strange. The Consumer Protective Safety Commission, they put forth a regulation stating that all beds must be treated. At first, companies were using a retardant that was linked to cancer and many health issues. The initial retardants were the polybrominated diphenyl ethers. Due to all the health issues that were developing from people, it was phased out of bedding. However, it's pretty much found in almost, I wouldn't say every television, but it's found in a lot of televisions. They still use it. The call to action is this. You can buy furniture without flame retardants in them. In 2014, California introduced Technical Bulletin 117-2013. So since 2015, California introduced this law stating that manufacturers selling furniture must include a label attached to the furniture indicating if a fire retardant was used or not. Because California, they have such a big influence on regulation and letting the consumer know about toxic chemicals, that most manufacturers began making their furniture designed around California's law. Unfortunately, the fire retardants, they're still used, but a label must be present to indicate if it has been used or not on that particular type of furniture. So I do commend California for getting that done for the rest of the country. In regard to clothing today, some children's clothing, particularly sleepwear, it may be treated with fire retardant. However, all labels should be scrutinized to make sure that your young child's clothing does not contain any carcinogens. And what happens is also over time of washing, you actually end up washing out, if any were used, you actually end up washing it out. That being said, when I purchase any clothing, depending on what it is, I wash it first before I wear it. So I would advise people doing the same, especially for their children. Taking care of that to not allow certain carcinogens and things to get into their bodies. As far as the mattresses, the bedding, the organic mattresses there are available. They're a little pricier. They're about $1,000 more than what a regular mattress would cost. So whatever your mattress is, add $1,000 to it. That's what an organic one would cost. They don't put a lot of the carcinogens in it. They use eco-friendly material to make the bed. So compared to conventional, they're a bit more expensive, but again, you're not exposed to a lot. I would advise opting for that if you can afford it. I would definitely go for organic bedding. As far as the televisions, they still use the polybrominated diphenyl ethers. There is no organic option. I would opt, for trying to get with other people and demanding that television manufacturers give us a healthier alternative, something that especially a lot of people watch television, myself included. A lot of people watch television to get some enjoyment, or to watch particular shows. You don't want something that's going to be a carcinogen in your home. The only thing that we're actually able to do with the televisions, when it comes time to dust them, I would put a mask on and I would take a damp cloth and wipe off the back of the television I would then put that same cloth into like a small garbage bag, tie it up, go outside, toss it in the garbage can or your disposal, not your garbage disposal, but your disposal facility, wherever you are. Like if you're in an apartment, home, however you have it set up, I wouldn't throw it in your regular garbage in the house. I would just toss it out. So that's pretty much the only alternative we have until manufacturers start using less toxic flame retardants on the televisions. Moving on to cell phones. Now, everybody loves their cell phone, myself included. I use my cell phone several times a day, just as pretty much as the billions of people around the world that have them. The thing is, cell phones have RF waves or radio frequency waves. That's how cell phones communicate with towers. Cell phones send and receive signals, and as humans, we're constantly bombarded by radio waves. Anything wireless has radio waves. Wi-Fi hotspots emit radio waves. Wherever we are, there's radio waves. There's constantly things around us. For example, like when you go into a public place, say a hospital, fast food place, a store, wherever you go, if you have your phone out, it's going to probably ask you, do you want to log on to the Wi-Fi there? Because there's signals everywhere and your phone is constantly communicating. So just to show you how much we're bombarded. The health concern is this. Cell phones, they emit radio waves and microwaves. And although they're deemed safe by although they're deemed safe by regulation agencies, the RF waves, they've been classed as non-ionizing waves, meaning that they're not supposed to disrupt DNA. However, when you buy your phone, a lot of people don't do it, but myself included, when you buy your phone, you look at those directions. In the fine print, some manufacturers tell you, do not put the phone to your head, which is crazy. It's a cell phone. Of course you're going to put it to your head, but if you read that fine print, some of them tell you not to do that. Some of them tell you not to keep the phone or to keep the phone a certain distance from your body. One company that I saw, again, I don't name names, they said to not put the phone in your pocket. So and I guess because they're looking at the testicular cancer or ovarian cancer, things like that. So there's a thing that they know, but it's a loophole that they have. I guess as long as they tell you, even though it's in the fine print, who's going to read the fine print? But I guess they're protecting themselves because they're letting you know. And then again, I'm not saying be scared of your phone. You can use your phone, but you just may not want to have it so close to you all the time. In November of 2020, just last year, a research study published by Shi, O'Brien, Hung, Chen, Ho, and Tsai. The paper was called "Exposure to Radio Frequency Radiation Increases the Risk of Breast Cancer: A Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis." I read this article, and they were talking about the link to RF radiation, breast cancer, specifically women who use cell phones and computers. And it was just pretty shocking. Because people always say that the RF, not the R, the RF waves are safe. They're not like X-rays or gamma rays or anything like that. But it's just like with anything else. Time will tell how dangerous things are. If you look back at the 50s and 60s, cigarettes were really big in the culture. They had commercials, people were using them on television. When people started getting cancer, people started dying off, and people were looking at the cardiovascular disease and all the things that were involved with it. Then the things had changed. Well, with the cell phones, it's pretty much jumping into that. Things are really changing with smartphones and things of that nature. And again, time will tell. Regarding this, I'm not saying don't use your phone. You can use your phone, just be smart about it, how you use it. The call to action, well, I would use the hands-free option. If you're in your car, use the hands-free. I wouldn't use any Bluetooth because that's sending the signal to that Bluetooth and you're keeping it right there next to your brain. I personally, I don't consider that a good idea, and I don't see a lot of people with Bluetooths using them anyway. I don't think they were catchy for a little while, but people, they don't use those things. If you have earpods with a microphone, use those, or you could just put your phone on speaker. So those are those are some of the ways that you can avoid having that phone that close to you. And that's gonna do it for this show. I want to thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. It was great to be here. It was a great night, and I want to thank you, and I look forward to giving another podcast in another 2 weeks. And I will see you then, and you take care. And remember, living healthy creates a better you.